You wake up, it's 3 a.m. The room is dark, the house is quiet, but your mind? Your mind is wide awake. Your heart is beating a little faster than it should be. You're not stressed about anything in particular. You didn't have a nightmare. You just woke up. Again. Like clockwork. And maybe you've tried everything. You've tried melatonin, you've tried chamomile tea, you've tried going to bed earlier, going to bed later, no screens before bed, white noise, blackout curtains, and yet, night after night, something pulls you out of sleep at the exact same time. If this is you, I need you to stop whatever you're doing and watch this video, because what I'm about to tell you is something most doctors don't explain, most sleep supplements are not designed to fix, and most women over 50 spend years trying to solve without ever finding the real answer. I've spent 22 years as a women's health specialist. I've personally tested over 300 sleep protocols with real patients, and after all of that, one pattern is impossible to ignore. Melatonin almost never fixes 3 a.m. waking in women over 50. Not because you're taking the wrong dose, not because you haven't found the right brand, but because melatonin is solving the wrong problem entirely. And before we go any further, if you've never been on this channel before, what we do here is simple. We take complicated women's health science and we make it actually useful. If that sounds like something you need in your life, hit subscribe right now. There are women watching this video who've been losing sleep for years, and the information coming up completely changed things for them. You'll want to be here for what comes next. Now, back to 3 a.m., because here's the thing that changes everything once you understand it. Waking at 3 a.m. is not a sleep disorder. It is not a sign that something is deeply wrong with you. It is not the result of bad sleep hygiene or too much screen time or stress you need to manage better. It is a measurable, documented, physiological response to a very specific hormonal shift. And once you know what that shift is, the solution becomes clear. A 2023 analysis from Harvard Medical School looked at 4,200 postmenopausal women who experienced chronic nighttime awakening. What they found wasn't low melatonin. What they found was elevated cortisol, your primary stress hormone, spiking between 2 and 4 a.m. at the exact hour it is supposed to be at its lowest. Not a little elevated, clinically elevated in 73% of the women studied. And this matters far beyond just being tired the next day. Repeated overnight cortisol exposure is directly linked to visceral fat accumulation, accelerated cognitive decline, and cardiovascular instability. In women over 50, chronic nighttime cortisol elevation is one of the earliest and most reliable warning signs that your body's hormonal systems are under serious pressure. The good news? The interventions that actually address this are well documented, accessible, and most of them cost almost nothing. What most women have been missing is simply an accurate explanation of what is driving the problem in the first place. Here's what happened inside your body, and I need you to pay close attention to this part, because this is the moment most women describe as the first time they actually understood what was going on. Before menopause, you had two hormones quietly working through the night to protect your sleep. Estrogen modulated the HPA axis, the system that controls cortisol output, keeping it calm and measured throughout the night. It also regulated the part of your brain responsible for body temperature, ensuring that your core temperature stayed low and stable, which is essential for deep, restorative sleep. Progesterone played an entirely different but equally critical role. Inside the brain, progesterone was converted into a neurosteroid called allopregnenolone, which bound directly to GABA-A receptors, your nervous system's primary off switch, producing a natural sedative effect that kept you asleep. After menopause, both hormones decline dramatically. Estrogen can drop by as much as 90% in the first 2 years after your final period. Progesterone falls alongside it. And with those two hormones gone, your sleep system is essentially operating without two of its most important regulatory inputs. The HPA axis, with no estrogen to keep it calm, becomes hypersensitive. Small fluctuations in blood sugar, body temperature, or nervous system activity, things that would barely register before, now trigger a cortisol response. And the cortisol awakening response, which is supposed to happen between 6 and 8 in the morning, starts arriving hours too early. By 2, 3, 4 in the morning, cortisol is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's generating wakefulness and energy. It's firing perfectly, just at completely the wrong time. This is why melatonin doesn't help. Melatonin governs when you fall asleep. It has zero regulatory effect on cortisol-driven arousal in the middle of the night. You are not treating the wrong dose. You are treating the wrong problem. So here is what this video is going to do. I'm going to walk you through 6 interventions, ranked from effective all the way up to most comprehensively targeted, that each address a specific piece of this hormonal and physiological puzzle. The one ranked number 1, the most powerful of all 6, produced a 43% reduction in nighttime awakenings over just 12 weeks in a 2023 University of Missouri trial with over 3,000 postmenopausal women. 43%. That is not a minor improvement. That is most women going from waking every single night to sleeping through consistently. Every single intervention I'm about to share is evidence-based, accessible, and something you can start this week. Let's go. Number 6. Bedroom temperature. This one sounds almost too simple to matter. It isn't. Estrogen used to regulate the part of your brain that controls your body's internal thermostat. For deep, slow-wave sleep to happen, your core body temperature needs to drop 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit below your daytime baseline. Before menopause, estrogen kept that thermoregulation tight and precise. After menopause, the threshold widens dramatically. A single degree of extra warmth from your bedding, from digestion, from the room temperature can cross the arousal threshold, trigger a cortisol micropulse, and pull you fully awake. A 2020 study from the University of California, San Diego followed 1,240 postmenopausal women across 12 months. Women sleeping in rooms kept between 65 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit experienced 34% fewer nighttime awakenings than women sleeping in rooms between 70 and 72 degrees. Same age, same hormonal profiles. The only variable was room temperature. Set your thermostat to 65 to 67 degrees before bed. Use moisture-wicking sheets to reduce the heat feedback from perspiration. If you share a bed and your partner runs cold, a dual-zone cooling mattress pad solves this without a negotiation every night. Number 5, blood sugar stabilization. That heart-racing, suddenly completely alert 3 a.m. feeling, a significant portion of the time, that is not anxiety. That is a blood sugar event. Here is the mechanism. Your liver stores glucose as glycogen to fuel your body overnight. That glycogen reserve depletes roughly 4 to 5 hours after you fall asleep. For someone asleep by 10, that places the depletion window squarely between 2 and 3 in the morning. In a metabolically healthy system, the liver quietly releases stored glucose and nothing disturbs your sleep. But estrogen supports insulin sensitivity. As estrogen declines, insulin resistance tends to increase, and overnight glucose management becomes less precise. The result is a more pronounced blood sugar drop at the 4 to 5 hour mark, which forces your body to release adrenaline and cortisol to pull glucose from the liver fast. And that hormonal alarm is exactly what you feel when you wake up with a pounding heart and zero apparent reason for it. A 2022 NIH study followed 1,847 women aged 52 to 68. Women who ate a small protein and fat snack before bed had 41% fewer nighttime awakenings compared to women who ate nothing or ate carbohydrates. The carbohydrate group actually did worse in some cases because of a secondary blood sugar drop later in the night. 30 minutes before bed, a tablespoon of almond butter, a small handful of walnuts, or 2 to 3 slices of turkey. That's it. Slow digesting fuel that extends your liver's glucose supply through the overnight window so your body never needs to sound the alarm. Number 4, magnesium glycinate. This one matters enormously, and most women are taking the wrong form. Remember allopregnenolone, the neurosteroid produced from progesterone that kept your GABA A receptors activated through the night? When progesterone declined, that daily GABA activation disappeared with it. GABA A receptors are your brain's primary inhibitory pathway. When they are underactivated, the result is that specific and exhausting pattern many women know well, waking in the early hours feeling physically tired but mentally completely switched on, with thoughts cycling and no ability to fall back to sleep, despite desperately wanting to. Magnesium glycinate, specifically the glycinate chelated form, has been shown to bind to GABA A receptors and partially compensate for the allopregnenolone deficit left by declining progesterone. A 2021 Johns Hopkins study followed 892 women over 55. Women taking 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate 60 minutes before bed showed a 29% improvement in sleep maintenance and an 18% reduction in overnight cortisol compared to placebo. The form is not interchangeable. Magnesium oxide, what most inexpensive supplements contain, has roughly 4% bioavailability. It does not reach the brain tissue concentrations needed for any of this to work. Magnesium citrate absorbs better, but causes a laxative effect at the doses required here. The Johns Hopkins trial used magnesium glycinate specifically because of its absorption profile and documented brain availability. 300 to 400 milligrams, 60 minutes before sleep. That is the tested protocol. Number 3, morning cortisol anchoring. This intervention feels counterintuitive because you do it in the morning to fix a problem that happens at night. But once you understand the mechanism, it makes complete sense. Your cortisol arc, the natural rise and fall through the day, is supposed to peak between 6 and 8 in the morning and decline gradually from there. In many postmenopausal women, this arc has shifted earlier, with the peak arriving in the early morning hours when sleep should be deepest. That shift is not random. It happens because the cortisol arc is recalibrated daily by the brain's master circadian clock, using natural light as its primary input. When natural light reaches your eyes within the first 30 minutes of waking, it signals the suprachiasmatic nucleus to anchor the cortisol arc to that time. Without this daily recalibration, the arc drifts. Morning movement amplifies the light signal by producing a small natural cortisol response that reinforces the early day anchor. A 2023 Harvard study followed 2,100 postmenopausal women for 20 weeks. Women who spent 10 minutes outside within 30 minutes of waking, combined with 5 minutes of light movement, shifted their average cortisol peak by 94 minutes toward morning. By week 8, that group reported a 37% reduction in 3 a.m. awakenings. The control group, which received standard sleep advice without the morning protocol, showed no statistically significant change. 10 minutes outside, 5 minutes of movement, done within 30 minutes of waking. Even on overcast days, diffuse natural light is sufficient to trigger the circadian signal. Number 2, vagal nerve activation. Estrogen-supported vagal tone, the baseline activity of the vagus nerve, which is the main conductor of your parasympathetic nervous system. As estrogen declines, vagal tone drops. What this produces in practice is a subtle but persistent low-level alertness at night, a slightly elevated heart rate, a quality of attention that keeps scanning the environment even when nothing is wrong, a difficulty completing the transition into genuinely deep sleep. The vagus nerve responds directly to the ratio between your inhale and exhale. When the exhale significantly exceeds the inhale, vagal fibers send a direct parasympathetic signal to the brainstem, producing measurable drops in heart rate and cortisol output. This is the mechanism behind the 4-7-8 technique. 4-count nasal inhale, 7-count hold, 8-count oral exhale. The extended exhale is where the entire benefit lives. A 2023 Cleveland Clinic study followed 1,456 women aged 50 to 70. Women who practiced this technique for 10 minutes nightly over 8 weeks showed a 24% reduction in overnight cortisol and a 51% reduction in nighttime awakenings. The control group, which did box breathing, equal inhale and exhale, showed only 8% cortisol reduction. The only structural difference was exhale length. 10 minutes in bed before sleep onset. Within a few weeks of consistent practice, the reduced sympathetic baseline becomes your body's default starting point for sleep, rather than something you have to actively achieve. Number 1. Phytoestrogen and adaptogen protocol. Every intervention before this one addresses a specific consequence of the hormonal shift: temperature regulation, blood sugar, GABA activity, cortisol timing, nervous system tone. Each one produces real, measurable benefit. But what they all share is that they manage downstream effects rather than influencing the hormonal environment at its source. This one goes upstream. Dietary phytoestrogens, specifically lignans from ground flaxseed and isoflavones from edamame, bind to estrogen beta receptors. These receptors are concentrated in brain tissue, the hypothalamus, and the cardiovascular system. They are the exact sites where estrogen performed its regulatory functions over temperature control, HPA axis sensitivity, and sleep architecture. Phytoestrogens are not a pharmaceutical replacement for estrogen, but they produce a measurable modulatory effect at those receptor sites through ordinary dietary intake. Ashwagandha root extract, specifically the KSM66 form, which uses root-only extraction standardized to a minimum of 5% with enolides, has demonstrated direct HPA axis modulation in controlled trials. It reduces baseline cortisol secretion. It dampens the HPA's hypersensitivity to physiological stressors, and it attenuates the exaggerated early morning cortisol response that is driving the 3 a.m. awakening in the first place. A 2023 University of Missouri study followed 3,120 postmenopausal women over 12 weeks. Women taking 300 milligrams of KSM66 twice daily with breakfast and dinner, combined with daily phytoestrogen intake from 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed and regular edamame, showed a 43% reduction in nighttime awakenings, a 31% improvement in REM sleep duration, as measured by overnight polysomnography, and statistically significant reductions in morning cortisol compared to baseline. The placebo group showed no meaningful change in any measure over the same 12 weeks. Full effects are typically observed at 3 to 4 weeks. If you are taking thyroid medication, discuss ashwagandha with your physician first, as it has been shown to influence thyroid hormone levels in some individuals. Let's bring this all the way back to that moment. 3 a.m. Eyes open. Heart beating. No obvious reason. That moment is not random. It is not a mystery. It is your HPA axis operating without the estrogen that used to keep it calm, firing a cortisol surge in response to a temperature fluctuation, a blood sugar drop, or reduced vagal tone. And that cortisol is doing exactly what cortisol is designed to do. It is waking you up. It's just waking you up 5 hours too early. Every single intervention in this video targets a real, specific component of that process. Cool the bedroom, and you remove the thermoregulatory trigger. Stabilize your blood sugar overnight, and you eliminate the metabolic alarm. Take magnesium glycinate, and you partially restore the GABA signaling your brain lost when progesterone declined. Anchor your cortisol arc every morning, and you gradually shift the peak back to where it belongs. Activate the vagus nerve before sleep, and you lower the sympathetic baseline your body starts from. And with the phytoestrogen and adaptogen protocol, you begin influencing the hormonal environment itself rather than just managing its consequences. You don't have to implement all 6 at once. Start with 2 or 3 that resonate with your situation. Build from there. Women who address these mechanisms consistently report meaningful improvement in sleep continuity within weeks, not because this approach is new or cutting edge, but because it actually corresponds to the biology of what is happening. And if this video gave you something you'd been missing, a real explanation, a clear path forward, then do one thing before you leave. Subscribe, because this channel exists for exactly this reason, to give women accurate, science-based information about what is happening in their bodies and what they can actually do about it. There is a lot more coming that you will not want to miss. Hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Full research citations for every study referenced in this video are in the description below.